All right, so I just saw the first 2 episodes of Chief of War, the new Apple TV Plus series starring Jason Momoa. A lot of people I've seen calling this "See Only in Hawaii," right? Because that was, of course, Jason Momoa's first Apple TV Plus show. And really, if you look back on it, one of the original, right, shows on Apple TV Plus before it was really, what it is today. In my opinion, one of the best. I mean, them and HBO right now, to me, are producing some of the best, TV series in terms of that kind of prestige, kind of next level television these days. So, anyways, kind of funny, and I was highly anticipating the show, honestly. I've only seen, a couple episodes maybe of C, and I've heard it kind of went downhill, in the later seasons, or maybe from the beginning, some people say. But, this one, I don't know, the trailer really won me over. The buzz about it has just been there. And also partly because we haven't really got a lot of good shows in the last couple months. Not even good, like there just hasn't been that many that I thought were interesting. I think The Bear came out within the last couple months, and there's been a couple, don't get me wrong, but it just seems like we were in a bit of a lull, especially compared to the beginning of the year, which was really jam-packed, at least for me. I had, I want to say, like at least 15 shows or something in the first just few months of this year that I was checking out and keeping up with. So anyways, it seemed like we haven't had much, and so that's maybe part of the reason. But this one also looked really cool. Great to see Jason Momoa obviously back in a starring role, and man, this is like a passion project. I think that is the right way to describe this for him. I mean, he's starring in it, he's writing the episodes, he created the show, he's producing, and I think I read something that he may be directing episodes as well. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I do remember, when I was I've covered a few things about the show on the channel so far, and I believe one of those articles said that he was going to direct the finale or something like that. So anyways, he is really, really heavily involved in this show, and one of the points I'm going to make as a positive about these first 2 episodes, which I think the first one's called The Chief of War, and the second one I want to say is Changing Tides or The Changing Tides, something like that. But the one point that I wanted to make is how authentic they're really going for. Now, the only thing, though, looking into the show a little bit, is that a lot of these actors are from New Zealand, because, in part, they shot a lot of the show actually in New Zealand. So that kind of takes away a little bit from my point of it being authentic. However, the main thing is the language, right? Like the language here on display, and I could be wrong, but is this not the first TV series that is spoken, mainly or majority of the dialogue spoken is in this language, right? Native to the Hawaiian culture. So that alone, and just and what a big, really ambitious, kind of maybe risky decision for Jason Momoa and the producers behind this, and even Apple, to give the okay, right? To not have this just in English. We've seen so many movies over the years, not necessarily about, Hawaii in specific, but just in a lot of different cultures and different things, and it's just this Americanized version where everyone just speaks English, and you have to suspend your disbelief. But no, I mean, they're really going for it here. They're speaking the language. I can't speak on how, accurate everything sounds, but I'm assuming it's pretty good. It sounds authentic, and everybody's accent seems really good. You can't really tell anybody apart. So anyways, I think that aspect of it, maybe yes, they shot some of the show in New Zealand, but they also did shoot, a good amount of it in Hawaii as well on location. So anyways, that to me is one of the biggest positives just of the show so far, in these first 2 episodes, is just how authentic. I mean, the costumes too, just a lot of it just seems really authentic. Seems like they put the time in, and again, it's not just this lazy, kind of Americanized, version of these events or of these people and their culture, and that kind of thing. So anyways, I think that's one big positive of it. It also exceeded my expectations because this is a show that kind of is filling a void, or hopefully fills a void, in this kind of epic, epic kind of battles, epic kind of, just the scale of things. I think we get this in some sci-fi shows these days for sure, like something like Foundation comes to mind. That's also on Apple TV. And there's some others that I'm probably forgetting right now. But anyways, it's this kind of outside of sci-fi, which, again, I guess you could say Game of Thrones was sci-fi too, but it's also that kind of medieval, that sort of time period with the warfare and that kind of thing. I feel like we're kind of, have a void there that needs to be filled. And I feel like this series, just from the trailers, and I can say the first 2 episodes, it looks like that can really happen here. It really can fill that kind of void that we are in, of this kind of, epic feel, the scale that you really get for these battle sequences, for the action, and kind of the war aspect of it. I think it really exceeded my expectations in terms of that. We even get like some slow motion stuff with some of the, hand-to-hand combat scenes, which have been really great so far. Obviously, Momoa is really great. And the other stunt people, I guess, that are probably doing some of this stuff too. But I think they've really done a good job in terms of the actual, fighting scenes, the action. I think they've done a really good job on it. The only kind of criticism maybe with that is just in the first episode, where we felt the scale until we got to the one kind of, sequence or the scene there where they're kind of storming the temple, I'll say. I'm not going to spoil too much, but, they're storming this temple. And the way that they talked about this whole invasion, and also some of the shots and the scenes that we see before that, really emphasize the scale of this battle. We get that kind of epic feel to it. But that scene just felt kind of localized. Like, it just felt like kind of a small setting for this to happen, and there wasn't that many people there. But anyways, besides that one, scene there, I really did feel that scale, that epicness, and even in the settings that they use, even in episode 2, where we don't have necessarily kind of a big battle sequence like in the first episode, I still, the way that they shoot it with those kind of long shots where you see Jason Momoa in kind of the mountain or the background, which is so large and so epic in scale. And I feel like you really get that, through. You really feel that. So that has been, really, really good so far. I do like, and I think the writing is good, right? There was nothing, I really would have liked the first episode to end on a bit of a, more of a, I don't want to say cliffhanger, but just a better hook. The first episode with the kind of twist that happens, which I thought was really effective actually, and I didn't see coming. It works, but I just would have liked to see maybe a little more action at the end of that first episode, where Jason Momoa maybe gets his revenge on somebody, right? I just would have liked to see a little bit more there to end the first episode. But other than that, I thought it was a well-written episode. The second one, obviously, it's a little bit of a step down in terms of kind of the tension. Obviously, he's on the run, but again, it's not that kind of, the first episode is very much building up the whole episode until that, battle at the end of the episode. Whereas the second one, it seems a little more contained, a little more localized. That tension maybe isn't quite there at the same level. But I think the writing just in general is good. I wasn't blown away by, anything in these episodes, but I thought it was good, and this is something that I went in, kind of with an eye for, of like, okay, I've heard the writing in C, and from the first couple episodes that I saw, just very cliche, right? Like, just very, and again, the way that this, this series is not trying to be, prestige, geniusly written television, obviously, right? We are here for the action, we are here for the battles, and the scale and everything, which they're doing really well at, right? And so, as long as the writing is kind of, it's acceptable, it's even maybe impressive at times, which I thought the first episode was, then we're cooking. Like, that's all we really need for this type of show, and I think it's really doing that so far, and it's doing that really well. So, just, really positive things to say about this one. nothing, honestly, nothing really too negative, again, except for, that the one kind of sequence in the first episode took away from that. And then the second episode, yeah, I just felt like it was a little slower paced. But again, I would have felt a little different, I think, if the first two episodes were dropped weren't dropped together, because the way that first episode made me feel, the second episode is actually almost, because they're released together, it almost is kind of like the release, right? And again, there's still a lot of tension in that episode, but it is kind of a step down, right, in terms of that. Whereas if you release that and I waited a week for that next episode, yeah, maybe I would have felt that a little bit more, and it wouldn't have been as, relieving, really, for, just coming off that first episode. I watched, them almost back to back, right? So anyways, yeah, that'll just about do it, I guess, for my thoughts for Chief of War, the first two episodes here. Looking forward to it. I do wonder, are we going to be able to kind of keep the pace that they're going at, and I'm not sure how many episodes it is. I want to say 8, I think. I want to say 8, probably between 8 or 10, I would think. And so, yeah, I guess that would just be my only kind of thing here is, are we going to be able to keep the pace up of these first couple episodes? Because I do fear, especially with the way that episode 2 ended, especially for Jason Momoa's character, in going with, what are they? I guess they're British, right? I think they had the Great Britain flag on their ship. So he's going with the British, the sailors, right? That to me does feel like a little bit they're kind of setting up this thing where he's going to be on his own for a few episodes and they're going to be over here, and they're trying to kind of set up that kind of multi-perspective narrative for the rest of the season, which can work. Obviously, we saw it work in Game of Thrones for, how many seasons, but it also is sometimes a sign of just, this slower pacing and really bogging down the story. So that would just be my only kind of, caution, right, after these first two episodes going ahead. But I'm really confident. I'm really confident in this one. I think it could be really cool. Again, is it going to be, winning awards and, getting all this critical praise by the end of the year? No. But can it be a really enjoyable, entertaining, impressive, series to kind of fill that void of that epic kind of war action show that has been kind of missing for the last few years since Game of Thrones has ended and some others? Yeah, I think it could. It definitely could. So anyways, those are my thoughts. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Let me know what you thought of the first two episodes, or, what you've seen so far of the trailer, and all that stuff. So love to discuss with you guys. And then obviously, what you see going forward in the season, any theories and any stuff like that, love to discuss with you. And stay tuned on the channel, because I may be, coming back and doing a review for the whole season then once I get to the end of it, and maybe some videos here and there, as the season goes, if I have some more thoughts on an episode. So anyways, love to hear from you guys, and we'll see you then in the next review.